Good evening to everyone, and welcome to our May 2021 edition of the Philippine.net Users Group Dev Sessions. My name is John. I'm a principal developer at a company called PageUp, and I'm also the lead for the Philippine.net Users Group. And in tonight's session, we are going to have a Filipina developer with us working overseas, and she's going to talk to us about Azure and a really interesting topic about Windows Azure. But before we proceed to that talk, I would just like to share a bit of a word from our sponsor. So I would like to thank the .NET Foundation for hosting this live stream and having us letting us use their streaming capabilities and everything and hosting our show. Now there's a lot more user groups that you can see and their events in the .NET Foundation virtual user groups. So please join them and meet up, and you would see not just the Philippine.net user groups events, but all the events around the world. So aside from the Philippines, meron tayong mga events sa India, meron tayong mga events sa US. There's a lot of events sa US, and you can join those as well. If the topics are interesting to you and if it's convenient to your time, and yeah, so that's basically it. So thank you very much to the .NET Foundation for supporting us. Now I'm going to head over to Jonah, who is here live from
Sweden.
Sweden.
Yes.
I got confused
Hi.
between Sweden and Norway.
Yes, we have a lot of friends. We have a lot of friends in Europe. That's why we get confused.
Yeah,
Yes. Hi.
so sorry about that. I got confused about that. So anyway, it's a really good it's a really good topic. So I'm looking forward to it. So I'll hand over the floor to you, Jonah.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you to those that are tuning in today. Thank you. And kumusta? Thank you that you're here in FaaS session today about serverless .NET development with Azure Durable Functions. So let me start by sharing about myself. My name is Jonah Andersson. I am a software developer and Azure developer based in Sweden. And originally, I am from the Philippines and moved to Sweden 10 years ago. And on my free time, I like to mentor young women in tech. And also, I also work as a software developer consultant at Forefront Consulting, an IT consulting company here in Sweden. I really like coding and working with Azure. I'm a full stack developer for with coding mainly C Sharp and .NET. And I'm also recently certified as an Azure developer. And I also have a user group called Microsoft Azure User Group Sundsvall that I wanted to develop and improve for community sharing. And that's enough about me. So we will be starting my talk by sharing about this picture. So there was a few years ago, I went back home to the Philippines, and I was in Stockholm's airport. Arlanda is the name of it. And then when I was at the airport about to check in, I saw this line of queue, lots of people, and there was while waiting on the line, I wished that I could buy or grab a cup of coffee. but I couldn't. But I had that dilemma, and I wish that I could do multiple things at the same time. Unfortunately, that time there weren't any self-service kiosks, so it was something that I had to stay there, and I wish there was a solution for such problem without waiting. So why the purpose of introducing that airport queue photo is that Azure Durable Functions is meant to solve complex workflow problems in serverless architecture, which means that you can run parallel workflows in serverless environment. And I will be sharing more details about that. So as an overview, I will be just giving a bit of introduction of what cloud and serverless computing is, a bit about Azure Functions, the extension of Azure Functions, which is the durable functions, the common patterns, as well as a live demo. I will be showing an example or a project, mini project that I created this week. It is a project where a blob triggered Azure Functions project that sends notification using Twilio API, and some suggested learning resources. And to start with, I would like to go through about cloud computing. So as we all know, especially those of us that works with cloud development, we know that there are different cloud computing models available for us. So we have the private cloud, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, function as a service, and software as a service. And today we will be focusing on the serverless part or the serverless model, which is also known as FaaS or function as a service. So serverless is a trend in a technology that's really a trend these days. A lot of us want to learn more about it, and many developers want to find out what it is. And sometimes we question, is it really the right technology or solution that solves our problems? So serverless is an execution model where cloud providers like Microsoft Azure and there's also the AWS and Google, they provide like back-end services that that you can pay per use. And it is also called serverless because they abstract the servers from it, which means that you don't have to take care of the underlying infrastructure behind your serverless functions. And it's also scalable. You can create it instantly, and it's event driven. And actually, it's not really serverless because there are actually infrastructures or services or servers behind it. Only that the cloud provider, for example, Microsoft Azure, take care of that for us to make our work easier. So I would like to compare a sweet comparison about the different technologies that we have serverless against others. For example, the monolith. Monolith is like is a big piece of cake with we have the different layers of our system architectures and in our logic and our presentation layer. So you get everything in one place, your database server and everything. But in microservices, they're like mini cupcakes. So you can pick, they have everything, they have layers in it, but you use it as, you eat the small piece of it because each function or each service serves its own purpose. So they're isolated. And the serverless, they're like tiny mini candies that you can just pick one of them, and they're light and easier to use, for example, as a dessert after a good meal. So when it comes to control and productivity, in monolithic architecture, you usually have you usually have more control of it because you have everything in one place. But as you go through the the serverless, there's more focus in productivity, which means productivity that you deliver your business requirements effectively and the developers work efficiently based on the requirements without worrying about maintaining the systems behind the function. So why do we need to build serverless if we could just build a normal web apps or normal apps? So it's because, as mentioned, it increases our developer productivity. We developers want to really like solving problems, and business also requires us to deliver and be productive. So with serverless, we can comply to this need. And auto scaling. Serverless give us the ability to auto scale, especially for the consumption model, pricing model. It automatically scales based on the call or based on the need that you have in your service. And it's pay per use model, which means that you only pay for what you use. And you can also develop serverless apps with intelligent apps within Azure. For example, you can connect your serverless application with IoT or even with cognitive services that's already in the cloud today. So you can integrate them with that. And there's also ability to solve complex problems, just like my example at the beginning, the key problem. And that happens also in our programming world, that sometimes we want to do, we want to create a workflow that runs parallel, or we want to create or run tasks all at once and get the result at the end when all of those tasks are done without any interruptions. So this is a good example that serverless solves for us. And also seamless connectivity, which means that you have the ability to modernize your app by connecting to other Azure services that are also great, and also external Azure service, external services on the internet. So to understand what durable functions are, we need to first know what Azure Functions are. For Azure Functions is the main compute service, serverless service, and it is event driven. So it is considered a function as a service, and it is triggered by events. For example, a blob trigger when an image is uploaded to your Azure storage, or if there is an HTTP request, for example. And also when you have a message queue coming in your Azure service bus. So Azure Functions worked by events, so they're event triggered. And you can integrate it with other third-party services and connect them to build and serve its business requirements purpose. So it's Azure Functions support several languages. The main ones are as of date, it's the C#, F#, JavaScript, and also Java. And this is how Azure Functions are composed of. So it's code driven, and it's events and data. So it's a lot of work in the back end. So, and then you connect your Azure Functions with your events from your front end and the data that you want to send and to show in your applications. So this is an example of an HTTP trigger in an Azure Functions, where you have HTTP requests, HTTP trigger. It can be get or post, and you send requests and add name, and then it returns back as a JSON object. And pricing model. So we're talking about consumption. We talked about consumption model, and it's because it's important to know the main pricing models, because there are actually the pay-per-use model. That's the consumption plan, which means that we only pay for the time that the code runs, when your serverless code runs. And there's also the app service plan. This is special. It's like having the web app, but you can also use app service plan in Azure Functions to only to pay a monthly fee. If, for example, if you are in a business, or your company wants to track and wants this monthly budget that we want to spend a certain amount for serverless development, so you want to set the limitation to that, so that it's good to choose the app service plan. And then there's also a premium plan to choose if you want premium services or features with your Azure Functions. So what's wrong with Azure Functions, and why do we need to have durable functions? Azure Functions, they're good, but they are actually stateless, which means that when the VM where Azure Functions are saved from are restarted, then your Azure Functions will lose its state. So if you want to run long-running workflows, then it is ideal to use Azure Durable Functions, because it solves stateful long-running workflows. And Azure Durable Functions is not a competition, or it's not a separate service from Azure Functions. It is the extension, which means that it's like it has the advanced features that a normal Azure Functions cannot do. So if you want to solve complex stateful function problems or solutions, then you can check out Durable Functions, because it's a powerful technology. And Durable Functions supports few languages already. It's C#, JavaScript, Python, F#, and PowerShell. So when do we need to use durable functions? So you can use Azure Functions. It's also powerful, but when do we need to consider using durable functions? So if you want to create long-running workflows that are stateful, that doesn't lose its state, and that's when you also want to work with recurrence interval. You want to manage the life cycle of your tasks, which means you want to control how you want your workflow be like, or how your tasks will be performed or will be executed. And of course, if you have a lot of parallel multiple functions that you want to run in one application, then might as well use durable functions to control the flow of that. And if you want to retry function activities, as well as you also want to develop serverless functions locally. So the technology behind durable functions is the Durable Task Framework. It's an open source, lightweight framework that's actually open in public on GitHub. So you can check on the link there. That's where you can check and even contribute to this framework. And currently, it's improving and developing, and it's getting popular. Many are interested in learning more about this technology. And this is the big picture of the different Azure function types. We have the client function that serves as a starter functions. This is like a normal Azure Functions. But what's special about the client function is that it can only be triggered by, it can be only triggered to start the orchestrator or the orchestration. And it kickstarts the orchestration. And when the orchestrator is kickstarted, then all the activities are run. And the orchestrator function describes how the actions or the workflow will be executed. It's like the blueprint or the plan, the project plan, how function should be executed. And the activity functions, that's where you perform your tasks, just like a normal functions task that you do. But the main heart of durable functions is the orchestrator. So there's also a different type of fourth type, which is called entity functions. And functions works with durable entities, and they're especially used for that to define operations for such entities. And if you want to work with entity functions, it's only available in version 2.0 and above, and you would need to use entity trigger. And as of this date, it only supports .NET and JavaScript. So the orchestrator, it is the heart of the durable functions flow. So it is important to, when we code the orchestrator, it is important that we define our workflow well, and it should be deterministic. Why do we need to create or code the orchestrator function in a deterministic way? It is because the whole function, orchestrator function, it's a workflow, it will be replayed. So you need to be consistent and determined on the task that you want to happen in your workflow. And there are more information about a deterministic API, like the orchestrator in durable function, through this link, so you can check it out and read more about that. And here's also another example of deterministic versus non-deterministic. So this is like the orchestrator, like durable functions, and this is like different separated normal Azure functions. So they don't have a flow. They can run anytime, they can lose its state. But this is the advantage on the left side, the advantage of deterministic. You have the workflow that controls every task that needs to be done. And this is when we need to know the common or known rule for the do's and don'ts when creating or designing your workflow. First, since orchestrator is deterministic, it is good that we do not generate random numbers, because random numbers, they're not really determined. They are random. So what we should do instead is, if we need to have random numbers, then we can retrieve the data or work on the data in our activity functions. And then the next one, do not access data stores like databases or configuration in your orchestrator. Then what you can do instead is you can pass configurations into activity functions. And the next one is that do not use thread functions like sleep, run, or delay within your orchestration. What you can do is you can make use of the context, the durable orchestration context, which has everything in it, if you want to use such concurrency methods. And also, do not create infinite loops. So since the orchestrator will be replayed, so if you're gonna create an infinite for loop or for each loop within the orchestrator, then it will be a problem. It will cause some technical errors maybe. And of course, if you have a consumption plan, it might create infinite bills in your Azure subscription as well. So we need to be careful not to create infinite loops in our orchestrator. So what we can do instead, so if we really need to repeat a process within the orchestration, we can use the method called create as new. So this is a method that you can access via the durable orchestration context. And also one example is it's not recommended to use current date time, because date time, they change every milliseconds and it's not determined. So we can use a special function specific for durable functions is the use UTC datetime, which can be retrieved or initiated from the durable context. So, I will be going through an overview about the durable function patterns because they are examples and how or what kind of workflow problems that durable functions can solve. So there are known six functions pattern. It's the function chaining, the fanning out and fanning in, the async HTTP APIs, and we also have the monitoring, human interaction, and external events correlation or the aggregation pattern. And to dig deeper into the first example, the first pattern, we have the function chaining. So in this function chaining is that you execute the function in specific order, and then the first function, the second function takes the input from the first function. For example, in this code snippet here, so we have like function one, it doesn't receive any parameter or data, but in function two, F2, it receives it has variable X as an input, so on and so forth. So it's executed in a sequential order. And I will be showing an example of function chaining in my demo today. And this is how it works, actually. So we have the orchestration behind the scene. This is how it works in the background. So when the orchestrator is started, the activity one is scheduled. And then when the activity one is scheduled, the orchestration sleeps. So when the orchestration sleeps, that means that you're not charged for the other functions or activity functions that are not running. So that's the good thing about orchestrate or deterministic orchestration, because you don't have to worry of being charged of activity functions that don't need to be run. And when it sleeps, what it does is that it waits for that first activity to be done, and then it wakes up again. And when it wakes up, it schedules the second activity, gets its input, it sleeps again, and then it's done, and then the orchestration is completed. So this is like it's very organized and synchronized in sequence, the function chaining example. So there are different patterns and examples with this, but this is a good one. And there's a second pattern, and it's called fan in and fan out, which means that you execute multiple functions at the same time, and then you do it in parallel, and then you aggregate, you wait and aggregate the result as one output, and then process it further. So this is a common pattern that solves many problems. For example, in this code snippet, is that you want to back up all the files in a backup site, and you do all of those files at once. And then when you use the keyword await tasks when all tasks are done, to aggregate the output or the results of all functions that run in parallel. Okay, so that's fan out and fan in. So next is async HTTP API. So this is commonly used for asynchronous long-running processes over HTTP. So for example, in my code here, I wanted to check if my website is available. So what I did is I have an orchestration trigger in it, and using the context, I wanted to check the status of my website. So I have a URL here, and I have a context call HTTP async, and pass in my URL, my website URL. And then here I do my if condition to check if my website is running or not. If it's running and it's not getting the 500 or the error codes for HTTP, then I will be logging or printing out the content of my website, and then I can process it further. And it's running asynchronously. And then next is the monitor pattern. In monitor pattern, it is actually the opposite of HTTP API. The monitor pattern refers to a recurring process in a workflow. It's like running a monitor job. For this example, it's doing its job, and then when it uses a timer. So when a certain time or when that timer happens, then it does other tasks to perform. And the next is human interaction. This is a human interaction pattern requires either a human to approve the action before it goes to the next task, or it can be a robot or programmed timer that responds to some actions. For example, in this case, there's a approval request, and that person needs to approve. If that person doesn't approve, there will be a timer, a timeout, a durable timeout, and it sends the approval to another functions like the escalate function to do something else, maybe forward the event to another person, maybe a supervisor if the manager is on vacation, for example. So this is the human interaction. It requires a response, either human or something that is timed programmed response. And we also have the aggregator or stateful entities, which means that it aggregates the event data over a period of time into a single addressable entity. And then when we work with HTTP or with durable functions, there are several HTTP statuses that we can expect. For example, the 200, which means it is okay, it's completed. There's also accepted. The instance is in progress. 400, very common, bad requests. 44, the file, it didn't find the file, for example. And 500, the common one is that server error. And this is an example of the data that you use. For example, if you have an HTTP trigger in your orchestrator, you can use Postman to get the data of your orchestration. So here you can see the ID, the orchestration ID, the orchestration instance, and the event URL. And you also have the terminate post URL. You can use this if you want to terminate or to program to terminate your orchestration. Or you can also restart and also purge the history of your orchestration. So this is a good thing to know, that you can see this information in Postman or on your web browser when you do your development. And to those that are working with containers, Azure Functions is actually supported in Kubernetes. There's a tool called Kada that you can use to work with serverless with Azure Durable Functions. So you can check out the code, the link here if you want to learn more about how to develop serverless Azure Functions in Kubernetes. And .NET 5, unfortunately, right as of today, Durable Functions is not supported in .NET 5, but it is actually planned and coming in few years. So probably when there's the .NET 6 is in preview, we will be able to use durable functions in .NET 5 framework. So next is here, Azure Functions. On the other hand, is supported in .NET 5. So if you want to start getting familiar with working with functions in .NET 5, then the standard one is already supported. And lastly, the best practices is that it's good to know when developing or choosing durable functions is use Azure Application Insights for monitoring and running instances. And when you need to update a new version of your serverless, it's good to version your code consciously, because it's running long running in the production and you need to make changes. So you need to do version control, like you create a new version and plan it. Or you can also do side-by-side deployment. And there's an article that I read in Medium. This one, it's called, there's an article called Durable Functions Blue-Green Deployment Strategy that are also worth checking out. So when you have time, you can review the video and maybe take picture of the link so you can visit it, or we can send it to you later as well. And error handling is important for development. So to handle errors for durable functions, usually if you get an error, you get the function failed exception in your code. But to handle that, what you can do is you can call another function activity, or you can use the automatic retry on failure method that's already in your context, in your durable orchestration context. And of course, the traditional TryCatch blocks in our code also helps in catching those errors and handling it. And here is an example of that here. So it has like transfer funds and a TryCatch example. So if there's an error, it's gonna retry and call another activity function to credit the account if something went wrong, for example. So when you want to develop durable functions, there are several tools that you can use. You can develop durable functions in Azure Portal easily. You can also use Azure CLI and Azure Core Function Tools. And you can also code locally using Visual Studio VS Code, as well as for HTTP requests and debugging with web APIs. I use either the browser or Postman. And there's also a tool called Azure Storage Emulator that you can use, especially in local development, to check on the status of your orchestration instance and the logs for the web jobs. So this is also a good one. And some free learning resources. Microsoft Learn has a good path for durable functions to get started. And the documentation has everything that you need to know in all concepts and examples there. And there's also a YouTube channel that I really like following. It's called the Azure Functions University in Europe, in YouTube, by Mark Ducker and Gwen Peña Sequenza, where they go through the fundamentals of Azure Functions, as well as real life advanced examples of it. So definitely check it out. It is a good free resources. And I also wrote a blog about Azure Durable Functions and Dev community, so you can also check it out. And some developer tools, you can use C#.NET and these tools in here that I already mentioned as well. And next will be the demo. Before I start switching my screen, I wanted to show you what my demo is about. So my demo is about a serverless Azure Cloud Storage notifier, in which I will be using the function chaining pattern. So what's happening is that I have a durable client function, which is triggered or event triggered by an Azure Blob trigger, which means that it kickstarts when I upload an image or a blob into my Azure storage. And then when it's triggered, I send the cloud blob data, or for example, image, into my orchestrator. And then the orchestrator will send the message to Azure Service Bus, and when that is sent, I have a check if it's sent or not. I will be sending an SMS and a call to me, the admin user that I set using the Twilio API. And then the last one, it's still in progress. I will be working on creating another function to fetch those messages from Azure Service Bus queue. So uh, here is before I present it, I will be showing what I expect the result will be. For example, when I run my durable functions project, I should be getting a text, an SMS that shows that informs me that I have a new blob coming in my Azure storage. And then this is also an SMS that I got on my phone, and I will be also getting a phone call using the Twilio API. So let me just see if I can switch or show you some code first. All right. I hope my time is okay. I think so. So here I have an ongoing project that's not final yet, but good, good, good to demo anyway. A short one. So I have a project called Serverless Azure Storage Notifier, and in here, I have several functions. I'm still about to refactor this, but let me see. So I have a starter function, which is a blob trigger. And here I have my connection string for my storage. And here I check if a blob is uploaded to my Azure storage, then I will be starting the orchestrator. So a starter, start new async, and I will call my orchestrator. I will be sending my cloud blob item with its details into to kickstart the orchestrator. And in my orchestrator, I have this workflow. So in my context, I have my uploaded blob, and I use context get input, and I created a class or a data class with all the parameters, what data I want to store. And my first chain is that when a blob is uploaded in my Azure storage using the context and it's triggered the orchestration, I will be calling another serverless Azure function to save the message, composed message about the cloud blob, like the link to the blob, into my service queue. And then when it's done, I will be sending an SMS, and my application will be calling me, and then I will be logging that information. So in here in my local file, I have like the Azure Storage Explorer, and I also have some sample image here. So what I'm gonna do, a lot of windows, I will run this function. So now it's running. And so now it's waiting for an event. And what I will do is I will try to trigger uh, what's going on. Lots of windows. Let's see. See my. What I will do is I will be dragging and dropping one of the images that I have here. Let's see, this one. Here, now you see that my orchestration has started. I'm getting a call. Let me just.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your.
Actually, set a message for this call to.
Hi, Jonah. Call reminder. New blob added to service bus queue.
This one was the message that I set in my Twilio account. So that's my live demo, and right now it is in progress and it's not done because I have a service bus queue that took. I already had 11 messages. I uploaded one more, so it's kind of like, oh, yeah. I added. I wasn't sure exactly how many it was, but I added one more message in my service bus. So my next function, the next change I'm going to do is I'm going to create the function that gets all the images from the service bus queue and show it in an application. But actually, even if I haven't coded any front end yet, I can actually go in my Azure portal and go on pick. Pick means I'm gonna check what's in my queue. And here you can see all the messages that I sent from my application. And the latest was this one, I believe, was the latest. And here I can see the message, a blob image shutters, the name of the file was uploaded. And if I click on this link, it will show the image is actually uploaded to the cloud and currently in the queue. So that is my short demo about durable functions. And just a few more slides. I want to summarize that you learned a bit about durable functions, some fundamentals of it, some useful examples, helpful resources. And if you need a copy of the code or the presentation, feel free to contact me on the information here. And thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you learned something. Thank you. Salamat.
All right, thank you very much, Jonah. I was having a crisis with my lighting here while you were presenting. I couldn't actually. I wanted to start addressing some of the questions that we were getting.
Oh, we already have a lot of questions.
Yeah, we have a bunch
Right.
of questions, and yeah, it was really interesting topic. But some of these questions are really relevant now. I know. Let's go with the first one from. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your
See.
name right, Molin. Can you give an example of when to use an Azure function and when to use an Azure Durable function?
Yeah, I good question. Thank you, Molin. I think it was mentioned on my presentation that it's good to use durable functions. Actually, you can. Both of them are serverless. Azure Function and Durable Functions, they are the same. They're like family. The only difference is that Durable Functions is like the extension of Durable Functions. It's like the enhanced version. Like it has more powers because it can it can let you develop stateful serverless logic without losing its state. So if you have something that you need to perform long running, then you should use Azure Durable Functions. But as you can see in my example, I kind of like combine actually Azure Functions and Durable Functions. What makes it different is that I had an orchestration that kind of like arrange and organize things how I want it. So I hope that answers
Yeah.
Mauline's
I
questions. But if
I
not,
have
feel free to
my
contact.
yeah, I have my own clarification about that because
Yeah.
what I was getting here is that the difference between the two. So your Azure function, right?
Mm.
It's basically it's atomic. It stands alone. You feed
Mm.
in the function, it feeds out the result. It doesn't remember anything about the data that you fed in. I wanted to clarify then that if it's a durable function, does that mean that it keeps some of the state or it remembers it?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that's why it's called
Mhm.
durable because it keeps its state because it's like in one place. And like I have an example, I think in one of my presentation somewhere here. Let's see. I had an example about. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah,
toggling. There is an
it's all right.
example here. It's good to show. This one. Here, you
Okay.
see, if you see this one, this is like on the right
Mhm.
side, they are like normal Azure functions, and they're like they can run based on how you code it. But this one, this Azure function can be in a different, like can be stored in a different virtual machines in the cloud, which
Mhm.
is controlled by Azure. So it's kind of like
Mhm.
randomly. But when you
Mhm.
use the durable functions API or the framework, then
Mhm.
you have the option to like you don't lose the state, even if
Okay.
the VM is restarted. So it's like
So
that.
so it means that if I have several Azure functions, if they are durable, I can pass that state across. Is that the difference, or is
I
that
think
state
it
passed
it
back to the orchestrator? Yeah.
yeah, it's like the state is maintained in the entire orchestration. So
Mm-hmm.
for example, if I have a data here and I have a data here, it's like you don't lose the data, like it's
Mm-hmm.
you that controls it. So unlike here, you don't have control how they
Yeah,
are
you
worked.
won't. You won't.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but
Exactly.
they're not in competition. They're
Yeah.
like they're the durable functions are there to make things better if you want to develop something
So
that is
you.
long
Yeah.
running. Like they
That,
even said that durable functions allows you to run functions forever, like
mm-hmm.
infinitely.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's very good to know this basics that you don't code uh, forever loops, because if you run
Yeah. Yeah.
functions and it's under your name and you're already
Yeah.
dead, you get lots of bills.
Yeah, yeah, I don't want to get charged for that. I don't.
That's correct.
Well, to be honest, I don't think there really is a case for an infinite loop, right? But
Yeah. Yes.
let's see.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, let's move on to our next question from William. So he was clarifying the advantage of using an Azure function to build an API for, let's say, mobile device. Maybe what he means is a mobile application, as opposed to, I guess, as opposed to say if you're going to just use a regular ASP.NET Web API
Yes.
that you upload as an app service. What's where does the strength of functions lie in that?
Now, let me just try to understand the question. Please tell me the advantage of Azure Function to build an API
Mm-hmm.
foot API
Four. I
foot.
guess
Ah,
he
for
meant
ah API
for mobile
for mobile
devices
device
in a
in
production environment. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like interesting question, because if you, for example, you have mobile app or web app, it's like PaaS,
Mm-hmm.
and serverless is like serverless. It's like two different deployment models, but you can
Mm-hmm.
combine it you can combine it by having an event in your web app or mobile app and use triggers. For example, what I did, I had like a blob trigger and it calls the API. So it's possible actually to build an API or services. It's like it's gonna be like microservices. Like you create each function, activity functions is a mini service. Just like what I did, I had a function, activity functions that sends the message from about the blob to the queue, and then I can create more functions, lots of functions in one. So there is an advantage in using that, but at the same time, before we create it with mobile device, we need to check how it works for different environments. So I
Yeah.
hope it
Yeah,
answers William.
maybe I'll add my own insight
Mm,
to it because I
sure,
have been working with, well, I had been working with
sure.
the AWS Lambdas, which is the
Yeah,
counterpart
okay.
of the thing,
Yes.
and this is also related to William's other question. I actually, this was actually his second question. He did also
Oh,
ask
okay.
how to use it in Microsoft in terms of
Mm,
a microservice architecture. So
mhm,
in my experience, it's like two different approaches to making a larger application, right? Or
mm,
serving, let's say in your case you have a mobile application. The thing with a freestanding API, or an app service, an ASP.NET Web API deployed to an app service versus this is that, okay, for going back to one of your slides, you said it was about control on one side, so it in
mm.
a more
Yeah.
monolithic approach you have control. But the thing is, whenever you deploy it, um every single part of that API goes down. So all the
Mm,
endpoints go down. All of that need to be,
yeah.
if you're using a CI/CD framework, you're going to build it, you're going to test
Mm,
it, you're going to deploy it, and then if one part breaks another part, you have to take everything down again.
yeah.
With Azure functions, or with individual functions like this, you could actually have API endpoints that are independent of each other, and
Mm,
they could stand alone and do
mm,
just one task, right?
yes.
That's the whole thing about the functions pattern. So
Mm,
in the past you think of your app as this one whole code base that
mm,
is deployed once,
yeah.
um in functions it's several little code
Yes.
several little methods, right,
Yeah. Just
deployed
like my,
separately.
just like just like my sweet example, like the
Uh-huh.
monolithic is like a big cake with different layers. Microservices is like cupcakes, and then the serverless or the functions as a code, it's like candies, like they're
Mhm,
light,
mhm.
and you can choose what you want. If something goes wrong, or if you ate up the candy, then you
Mhm.
still have those other functions working. Still, it's still
Yeah.
there available. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's move on to the next question here.
Yeah, we have more
Alexander
questions.
Kunikov. But it's the same service. I guess he's asking about if Azure Functions and Durable Functions are the same service in Azure, or are they
Yeah.
different?
Yeah, they are actually the same service. You go to the Azure portal, you create a service, and you actually create like the container for Azure
Mhm,
Functions or Durable Functions
mhm,
called Function App. And in your
mhm.
Function App, you can have durable functions. There's different kinds of a template and trigger that you can create. You can create the default durable functions, which has the starter template in it, or you can create a normal Azure Functions with blob trigger or service bus triggers and different triggers. So it's the same
All right.
service in Azure, but works differently depending on
Yeah.
what kind of flow you want.
And a follow up question from Alexander. If you have an Azure function, an existing Azure function, could you just, I guess his question is, could you just easily convert it to a durable one? This Does it automatically translate to the other?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I wanted to ask about that as well.
yeah, I actually this is interesting because in this the live demo that I did, it's a blob trigger triggered when a blob is uploaded, and that blob trigger you can also use that as a normal functions and do other tasks. But what I did is that I used the blob trigger as the starter function to kickstart the orchestration. This one, so it is possible to to convert it, but you would need to make changes in your code. Actually, for example, I can open my code here. My starter function, for example, at the end. This is not the like my code needs refactoring. I just started coding this yesterday, but this one, for example. So this is like a blob trigger.
Hmm.
So it looks like a normal Azure functions can use the same thing, but what you can do to convert an existing Azure functions to durable functions is that you would need to convert. You would need to add the durable orchestration client as a parameter, because you need this client or the starter to kickstart here your orchestrator. So you can just create minor changes so you can convert it. And when you change your normal function to a durable orchestration, you will also need to build your orchestrator, which requires you to carefully plan your workflow, like what I
Hmm.
did here. So that's why it's good to use TryCatch, or there's also another method here call. If you I remove this, there's also something call retry. This one, so you can also call with retry. And in your orchestrator, there's also another feature that you can create a sub orchestration. So there are a lot of cool things to do, or you can do with durable functions. But of course, there's no perfect there's no perfect technology. You really have to be carefully planning what are disadvantage, what is that doesn't work and not, so we just don't just do everything, and there will be a lot of errors.
I
If
suppose.
you get what I mean. Yes.
All right. One last, and this is a challenging question. This is Sir
Wait, it's
Jojo.
challenging.
Jojo. Okay, no, he's a regular in FaaS, and yeah.
Ah,
What's your demo really
oh,
about durable Azure functions? The only state I saw being saved was the messages in the message queue. If not, what other practical scenarios, I suppose, would could we add to your demo to make it really durable? Yeah.
yeah.
I guess from his point of view, this could be achieved using the message queues or Azure event queues. So yeah. What
Yeah. Actually, this is the demo that I have. This is just a simple demo, but I what I plan to do. So the messages that I have is that was sent by the blob trigger. For example, in my blob, when I received the blob, I created a composed message, and I saved that message into the Azure Service Bus queue. And my plan, as a practical example, for example, for me, that's using Azure. When I upload something, I want to be notified. So I can use practical examples like I showed, like I got an SMS using the Twilio API, and I even got a call, or I can later on send an email. So I do that by retrieving using the Azure Service Bus Queue. So there are different scenarios. For example, you can use durable functions with event triggers, event hub for your IoT applications. For example, you have an IoT kit that wants to check or track the temperature, and you want to get SMS or emails notification about it. So you can use or combine a different integration. So it's kind of free. The practical use cases, it depends on how you want it. Like, we're developers, we can build anything. Just kidding.
Yeah,
That's everything.
I guess where he was coming at was, uh, uh, um, he could achieve. You could probably achieve some of the same things using just plain functions, and especially with Event Hub,
Mhm.
you could, I mean, you could pass off the state, the whole state management to the Event
Mhm.
Hub itself, and use use that as your event store basically.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
yeah, I guess that was what on Jojo's mind. I hope that answers your question, Jojo.
Yes. It
Um,
actually, as I said, it actually depends on how you want to do your flow. It's you, that you developer controls your
mhm,
flow. You
yeah.
can like call different functions or integrate it with different functions
Hmm.
based on how you want. I was just thinking freely without thinking too much, how just trying different things with different
Hmm.
functions, service bus, block trigger, and
Yeah,
all.
that's true. That's
Yes.
true.
I hope it helped.
In reality, it's actually a bit of a, I would say it's a bit of a controversial concept in itself, diba? Kasi,
Mm, yeah.
functions were supposed to be stateless in the first place, and if you're a person from, say, a functional programming background, you would cringe at the idea of, hey, why are you putting state there? But Microsoft, being Microsoft, they usually want to address a lot of scenarios
Yeah.
that programmers aren't used to. So sometimes they put in features that, um, I mean, they put a lot of functional concepts on C sharp, which is a
Yes.
stateful, programming language by a lot of means.
Yes.
And yeah, it's interesting, and it's just interesting how
Yes.
these features are made available so that it could support
Yes.
different ways of programming it.
Yeah. And also not just different ways of program. Give us it kind of like gives us the flexibility to code and to develop something uh, based on the business requirements, and it kind of like make it like a hybrid or dynamic
Hmm.
almost. Like, for example, in databases, we're used back in long time ago, we're used to SQL and structured data. Now in the
Hmm.
cloud, we have Cosmos DB that can
Yeah.
handle different kinds of data and to
Hmm.
enormous sizes as well. So it's kind of like we developers, it's kind of give us the challenge, we developers as well, to kind of like be intact with these technologies as well, and
Hmm.
choosing the right service, Azure functions, Azure durable functions, or event hubs or triggers. It's really
Hmm.
important to know that. So
Yeah.
it's good that we have this tech communities like FINUG that does these
Hmm.
things, and we can raise questions and share ideas like you do, and the
Yeah.
audience as well, and Jojo and Alexander and
Yeah.
everyone that's watching.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
thank you for that. Any last words or anything for our viewers, or did you want to share some links or some contact details on your side?
Yeah, I had it here. Let me just go to
To the
uh
end.
I lost it.
Yeah.
Let me just go and wait,
All
I
right.
need to learn how to go to the last part of my slide. This one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you, salama to all the viewers, to John, Philippine.net user group, and and the .NET Foundation for having me here. So if you need a copy of the presentation or a copy of the code just to get started, feel
Mhm.
free to contact me on my contact information below or scan the QR. So feel free to reach out. I'm very humble and open and helpful. So feel free. Don't hesitate.
Mhm. All right,
Yes. And
and
yes.
yeah, and then I think you have your own meetup, Azure
Yeah, I
meetup group.
do. Let
Yeah.
me just
Uh,
click that. Let's see if I
yeah,
can
it's
share.
this. Is it this one?
Yes.
Azure
Yeah,
user group
I
on
am.
spot.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am. I recently created a user group locally here in Sweden. It's called Azure
Mhm.
User Group Sundsvall. Currently, it's new. I only have 25 members, but I have some sessions coming where I'm gonna share about Azure because I'm passionate about it. But feel free
Mhm.
to join. Maybe that to join through the link. And if you're watching and you're interested to share knowledge about Azure, feel free to contact me so I can organize an event that you can share knowledge in Sweden
Yeah.
and internationally. So feel
Yeah.
free, we can collaborate. So I'm very
Yeah.
open. Mhm.
Absolutely. So that's
Yeah,
an
thank
open
you.
call for for
Yeah,
our speakers from the Philippines.
cool.
If you want
Yeah.
to, if you want to speak outside of Philippine .NET users group or your groups in Manila, yeah, we're expanding. We're trying to invade the world or something.
Yes. Yeah, I also
Yeah.
want to also like advocate I
Mhm.
want to give opportunity to other Filipinos in the Philippines to share knowledge about Azure or .NET
Mhm.
all over the world. So it's good that we're helping each other and collaborating. So that's
Mhm.
it.
Mhm. All right, and
All right.
yeah, thank you very much. Anything else? Yeah. I think somebody did ask in the comments about where you would be sharing, if you would be sharing the links or the presentation.
Yeah, I do. It's William Salazar.
Uh
Yeah,
huh.
I can do that. Is it? I'm not sure. Do you have Yes,
Yeah.
it's that.
Yeah.
That's
Oops.
another
Oops.
one.
That's the other one.
I can upload I can upload a
Yeah.
PDF copy of my blog of my presentation as a
Yeah,
blog
I
and share the link
think
to you.
I can briefly show this. So the article for the Azure Durable
Mm,
Functions is there,
mm,
in dev the TO,
yes,
and then for other updates on this, maybe follow you in Twitter, I believe.
Twitter and
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Uh, yep.
Yes,
It's if I'm not mistaken, your is CJ Kodare? Yeah.
Kodare.
Yeah.
Kodare. It's a Kodare. It's like coder in Swedish.
Oh, all right, all right. I've
Coder.
always wondered
Yes.
why that's your Twitter handle. So now
Yes, coder. Yes,
I got
yes.
the context. All right.
Yeah, thank you. So
So
just feel free to contact me, William, and those who wants a copy of the
mhm,
code and
yeah,
presentation. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to prepare or zip my file, but just feel free to connect.
yeah, awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Jonah. And it's really, it's really great to have. It's really great to have Filipina developer present with us, and also someone who has who's making their mark outside of the
Mm,
Philippines. So thank you very much
yes.
for
Yeah.
being here. Yeah.
I'm
So
really, really proud, Pinay. I'm really want to advocate ang bandila ng Pilipinas.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Mabuhay ka. Ano,
Mabuhay,
maganda.
salamat.
Maganda yan
Thank you
na,
so much. Thank
advocacy.
you.
Oo. Sige,
Yes. Thank
taas
you.
natin ang
Thank you
bandila ng mga
for
Pilipino.
thank you for inviting me here and to kababayans who wants to share knowledge and connect, feel free to contact me.
All
para
right.
mag-usap tayo.
All right, cool. So you got that invitation. All right. Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Jonah. And yeah, so that ends our session for tonight. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat sa lahat ng mga nanood. Thank you for being here. So we'll catch you again. Watch out for our next invite for June's edition. And I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you have a good evening. So thank you and good night. Bye bye.